Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. And after just 3 weeks of the NFL season, only 3 of the 26 teams are still unbeaten. And all 3 of those teams have been somewhat surprising, I'd say, Tom.
Well, Pat, the Minnesota Vikings, I guess it's not surprising they've won them, but they've beaten all 3 of their NFC Central rivals. And the way they've done it has been surprising. In their last 2 games, the Vikings have only scored 1 touchdown in each game, but they've still won. And I guess that is surprising.
I still think the other 2 unbeaten teams have been totally surprising to everybody. In fact, they've even surprised their own coaches. How do you account for the early success of the New England Patriots and the St. Louis Cardinals and the relative lack of success of last year's strongest teams like the world champion Miami Dolphins?
Well, maybe relative is a good word to use. I still think it's a long season, and by the end of the year, I'm sure the Dolphins will be very close, and the Pittsburghs and the Oaklands are solid teams. But you know, Jimmy Plunkett really came of age for New England. He reads defenses right now, I'm told, about as well as any quarterback. And maybe they are really a bona fide team right now.
I suppose the lasting effects of the strike have slowed some of them down, too.
I think so, but the St. Louis Cardinals, you know, almost go away from that, except they have great team speed. Their defense is playing better, and I don't know, it seems like the defense now predicates who wins a game. What they give the offense and what's taken advantage of seems to do it, Pat. It's still up for grabs.
Certainly does. So it's a long season yet.
Yeah.
We'll be right back with This Week in the NFL after this message.
I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that the New England Patriots are the shocker team of the year. So far this season, they've surprised the Dolphins, Giants, and Rams, their own fans, and themselves.
2 weeks ago, number 42, Mac Herron, the Patriots' micro running back, said that he and his teammates weren't yet sure if they were for real or not, despite wins over the Dolphins and Giants. It was their feeling that the game against the Rams, a league powerhouse, would tell the difference between a team that had caught people by surprise and a team that was now a bona fide playoff contender. Last week, the Rams started strong with their brutal front 4 getting to Jim Plunkett early. Then Los Angeles put their many-faceted running attack into gear and gouged gains steadily en route to a score. The final increment was tacked on by Tony Baker, number 35, and Los Angeles led as expected. However, this year, the Patriots pack a wallop and soon had the Ram runners on the ropes, allowing them only 109 yards rushing for the day. With Los Angeles halted, it was now Mac Herron's turn to scooter New England into scoring position with the help of some crunching blocking. Then, standing behind excellent protection, Jim Plunkett rifled a pass to number 84, Darrell Stingley, whose great catch ended up in a shaking-up. But Darrell must have been playing possum, because shortly thereafter, Stingley stung Los Angeles by taking a pass from Plunkett in the end zone to tie the game at 7. Another look at the play shows that Plunkett coolly ignored an obvious Ram offside and had plenty of time to connect with his wide-open receiver. The Patriots then added 2 field goals to take a 13-7 lead. With the pressure on and the running game off, John Hadel took to the air where only inches separated the ball and number 19 Lance Rensel from a 1-point lead. Of course, the New England fans were less than sympathetic. The Patriots soon added to their margin when Plunkett hit number 18 Randy Vataha down the middle to make it 20-7. And yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus, and so are the Patriots for real. A repeat of the play shows that Plunkett's pass pocket has greatly improved, while his rapport with ex-Stanford teammate Bataha is better than ever. In the end, Lance Rensel did get his touchdown, but sadly for the Rams, it was too little, too late. And so New England's 20-14 victory over a team many thought invincible proves that the Patriots should be in the thick of things all year. Right now, however, they are 3-0 and more popular in the Boston area than baked beans.
Well, Pat, it's not often that Joe Namath is held under 100 yards passing for the day.
Last week, Tom, he didn't even reach 50, a fact that can be attributed to a howling rainstorm and also an improved Buffalo Bill defense.
Last week in Orchard Park, New York, the winds blew, at times gusting to 45 miles per hour, and then the rains came. But football is an outdoor game, so the show must go on regardless of the conditions. The elements affected everyone's performance, but one man suffered more than the rest. Joe Namath is one of the purest passers the game has ever known, but this day was not fit to prove it. At times, the swirling winds blew his passes away from wide-open receivers. Other times, the saturated plastic turf made maneuvering impossible. From every angle, the storm negated Namath's greatness, turning tight spirals into fluttering prayers. The climatic conditions relegated Namath to handoffs as the Jets had to improvise for every yard. However, New York did muster enough of a ground game to set up 2 Bobby Howfield field goals and a 13-yard John Riggins TD slosh. The Buffalo Bills did not even pretend they could beat the elements. Number 12, Joe Ferguson, threw only 2 passes, both incomplete, then handed off to the Juice 31 times for 117 water-soaked yards. O.J. Simpson brought the ball close, and Ferguson went the last yard on a broken play that fooled the Jets more than the Bills. But the real hero of this damp day was O.J.'s blocking back, number 34, Jim Braxton. Braxton compliments Simpson perfectly, hammering away at the defensive midsection while setting up Simpson's slants and jabs. Braxton turned in the day's biggest play as he thundered 21 yards over the synthetic sponge to give Buffalo a 16-12 fourth quarter lead. The rest would be left to Joe Namath. With 2 minutes left in the game, Namath had failed on 15 straight passes. For the first time in his life, he faced a game without a completion. So, with 94 yards in front of him, he went back to the air. Namath's pass to David Knight was the first completion for either team. But 2 plays later, the Winds once again took the snap from number 12's Ariel, and number 20, Robert James, accepted the gift. The elements and the Bills had brought Joe Namath to earth as Buffalo persevered in the wind and rain for a 16-12 victory over the Jets and a 2-1 record in the suddenly wide-open AFC East.
Two weeks ago, when the Cincinnati Bengals lost to the San Diego Chargers, it was said that the defending AFC Central champs were not mentally prepared to play. Well, last Sunday in San Francisco, while the Bengals again seemed to have their problems at times, it was the 49ers who showed that they had some troubles of their own.
With Steve Spurrier sidelined due to a shoulder separation, there weren't many that felt the San Francisco 49ers would win their opening games. Yet facing the Bengals, the 49ers were unbeaten in 2 starts. And behind number 19, Joe Reed, the red-clad Californian seemed bent on making yet another game of it. Though the 49ers led first with a field goal, that was to be the extent of their scoring as the Bengals all but devoured Joe Reed and company. While the Bengal defense made life miserable for Joe Reed and the San Francisco offense, the 49ers secondary managed an occasional interruption in the passing efficiency of Cincinnati quarterback Ken Anderson. Though twice intercepting, the 49ers stumbled when it counted, failing to capitalize on their breaks. Behind impregnable protection, Anderson all but scattered the 49ers secondary in the second half. This completion to number 84, Bob Trumpy, went for 23 yards. And in a repeat, notice who finally makes the stop. Yes, folks, it's our own NFL Films cameraman who finally stopped the rampaging Trumpy. But unfortunately enough for the 49ers, he isn't on the active roster. Number 85, Isaac Curtis, scored the Bengals' first touchdown and helped to set up their next as he combined with Anderson on a 48-yard shot. Three plays later, Anderson rolled to pass, but instead kept it for 6 points. And with a 14-3 advantage, the Bengals turned to the core of rapid runners to control the clock. However, early in the fourth quarter, the Bengals faced a seemingly certain punting situation at their own 45-yard line. Dave Green's pass to number 23, Bernard Jackson, gave the Bengals the momentum. And with number 11, Wayne Clark, subbing for a shaken Ken Anderson, Cincinnati moved in for the clincher. Wayne Clark found the corner of the end zone for the final score and a 21-3 Bengal victory.
You know, so far this year, Tom, it's been a tough time for the experts who try to predict the winners and losers in the NFL from week to week.
That's for sure, Pat. One team you can always count on, though, to be confounding in the early going is the Dallas Cowboys. Last week, they once again pulled off an early season surprise.
Giant coach Bill Arnsparger ventured intrepidly to Dallas last week, prepared to face the wrath for the Cowboys' previous Monday night loss to the Eagles. And at times, it looked like the sleeping Giants were in for a long afternoon as number 44, Robert Newhouse, pounded out yardage, and then Roger Staubach to Drew Pearson gobbled up deck of yards. But it wasn't until the final minute that the Cowboys crossed the goal line on a Staubach to Bob Hayes girder scraper, which narrowly avoided a shutout. because for most of the game, the Giants' defense came on like a woman scorned, furiously stopping the Dallas attack. Meanwhile, Norm Snead was using short pops to split the seams of the Cowboy zone. Number 85, Don Herman, was his primary target, as Snead effectively used the wide receiver on delay patterns across the middle and under the zone. The short artillery fire set up the big bomb to number 27, Bob Grimm, and put the New Yorkers within smelling distance of 6-Point City. Number 44, Doug Kotar, took it in with the added pride of scoring this year's first touchdown against the Doomsday defense. But last Sunday, Doomsday wore royal blue, rolled like thunder, and cracked like lightning as the Giants stormed in to drop Roger the Non-Dodger 7 times in all. Despite an occasional big break like the recovery of this Ron Johnson fumble, the Dallas offense was unable to convert anything into points. With pressure galore and time dripping away, Staubach went up on top, where 3 of his passes came down in giant arms. This theft by number 24, Chuck Christ, killed one Dallas drive. Then on play action, Norm Snead salted away a big New York victory when he hit number 26, Joe Dawkins, to make the final New York 14, Dallas 6. And there was no joy in Irving, only gloom as people wondered, could this really be the year so long awaited by the rest of the NFC East?
In Philadelphia last week, the Baltimore Colts lost not only a game, but also their head coach, Howard Schnellenberger. After their 30-10 pasting, owner Robert Irsay fired Schnellenberger and named general manager Joe Thomas as coach of the winless Colts, and he should know that team.
While Baltimore had their share of woes, so did Roman Gabriel and the Eagle offense, which in 2 games had not scored a touchdown. One big bright spot for head coach Mike McCormick was his defense, led by the formidable specter of Bill Bergey, number 66. Leading by deed and by word, Bergey prowled from sideline to sideline, and many an unlucky Colt felt the crunch of his ramrod right arm. Bergey's play was infectious as Eagle Green became a frequent color in the Baltimore backfield. And number 64, Joe Turkey Jones, often greeted Colt quarterbacks from the blind side. After 2 futile games, Roman Gabriel returned to the potent style that a year ago led the NFL in pass offense. Gabe threw short passes to Charlie Young and 6'8" Harold Carmichael, who turned them into long gainers. The Eagles built a 13-3 lead on a pair of Tom Dempsey field goals and a picture-perfect touchdown by Tom Sullivan, who last year rushed for almost 1,000 yards. Gabriel's passing and Silky Sullivan's running supplied the big plays in 1973. But this year, it's the defense's turn as cornerback Joe Lavender picked off a Domrey's pass and cruised to his 2nd touchdown of this short season. Gabriel consistently hooked up with Carmichael, who consistently refused to give up easily. Carmichael's big gainer set up Sullivan's second touchdown of the game and a 27-3 lead. Baltimore's only touchdown came on a Burt Jones to Glenn Doughty connection, but it was way too late for the Colts, and Howard Schnellenberger as Philadelphia won its second straight, 30-10.
Well, Pat, if you would have asked me to name the only teams that would be undefeated after 3 weeks of the season, I don't think I would have included the St. Louis Cardinals on that list.
Well, Tom, the Cardinals are indeed 3-0 and alone in first place in the very competitive NFC East.
The St. Louis Cardinals are hot, and last week Redbird backers were hoping that the Cardinals would burn the Browns, and that's just what they did, turning Mike Phipps' pass pocket into a hot spot. Phipps finally did manage to escape the Cardinal rush line, and he hit Jubilee Dunbar to complete a pretty 25-yard pickup. But this was Phipps' longest completion of the game, and the Browns' only touchdown was on a pass not by Mike Phipps, but by running back Greg Pruitt, who hit a wide-open Gloucester Richardson for a 55-yard score. Phipps' only touchdown pass came when he tried to hit Richardson in the flat, and it resulted in a Cardinal touchdown when Norm Thompson returned it 56 yards. The Browns' strength this year was supposed to be defense, but against the Cardinals, even when they got the chance for a big play, it slipped through their hands. And one thing you can't do this season is give the Cardinals a second chance, because they will make it good. Consider the case of Donnie Anderson. He popped through the line and appeared TD bound, but was just stopped on a shoestring tackle. No matter, later in the game, Anderson got one anyway on a 1-yard plunge and reach. Then there was the Mel Gray case. With 21 seconds left in the first half, Jim Hart hit Gray for an apparent 40-yard score. But on the play, the Cardinals were detected holding, nullifying Gray's touchdown. No matter, in the second half, Gray flew for 68 yards, and he got his touchdown back. Case number 3 was Terry Metcalf, who very nearly broke a punt return for a touchdown, but was stopped by the last man who had a shot at him. But Metcalf wanted his touchdown too, and he took the second half opening kickoff and returned it 94 spectacular yards for his touchdown. And watch this run. It all added up to a convincing 29-7 rout of the Cleveland Browns. Second-year head coach Don Coryell has his Cardinals 3-0 with a promising season ahead, while for the 1-2 Browns, it looks like it may be a long year. The black and blue types up in the NFC Central Division squared off this week, Pat, and the new rules didn't seem to have much effect on the way those guys play up there.
Right, Tom. Despite the fact that the goalposts have been moved back to the end line, there were 11 field goal attempts in the Detroit-Green Bay game, and 8 of them were good.
For the third straight week, the Detroit Lions faced an NFC Central Division foe, and the Lions' new head coach, Rick Farzano, was still looking for victory number 1, this time against the Green Bay Packers. The Lions' defense, which had been the big question mark prior to the season, continued to be the Lions' strength. After limiting the Minnesota Vikings to just 7 points the previous week, the Detroit defense held John Brockington to just 46 yards in 16 carries. And it was the Detroit defense would set up the Lions' first score when Packer quarterback Jerry Taggy was forced to scramble. His fumble was recovered by Herb Orvis, and 6 plays later, Earl Mann booted a 37-yarder, giving Detroit a 3-0 lead. Late in the quarter, Bill Munson, subbing for the injured Greg Landry, swung a pass to Alty Taylor, and Taylor raced for a 34-yard gain, setting up Earl Mann's second field goal, making the score 6-0 Detroit. Green Bay got on the board 1 series later. When Detroit could not move, number 56 Ted Hendricks spiked Herman Weaver's punt out of the end zone for a safety. The score was 6-2. And 1 series later, Green Bay added a field goal, making it 6-5. But Billy Munson stepped back and hit number 49 Larry Walton behind Kenny Ellis for a 39-yard touchdown. Detroit 13-8 at halftime. Midway through the third quarter, Jerry Taggy found the range, hitting Barry Smith with a 27-yarder, and Green Bay took the lead for the first time, 18-16. But 1 play after the kickoff, Munson found number 45, Ray Jarvis, with a 25-yard pass. Jarvis added another 31, and 4 plays later, Earl Mann reclaimed the lead for Detroit, hitting on a 28-yard attempt, making the score Detroit 19, Green Bay 18. But then Green Bay's 3 yards and a cloud of dust offense began to take control of the football. After one 14-play drive netted them nothing, and another 10-yard drive fell just short of the goal line, Chester Marco banged up a short field goal, which gave Green Bay a 21-19 lead with less than a minute remaining. But 3 plays later, with 24 seconds remaining, Earl Mann stood 47 yards from victory. Mann's kick fell short, leaving the Lions on the short end of a 21-19 score. And Jim Mitchell's discouraged posture says all that needs to be said about the Detroit Lions at the end of this 3rd straight frustrating defeat to a Central Division opponent.
So despite the new rules, the field goal is still a major force in the NFC Central, Tom. Those 4 teams just seem to prefer close, low-scoring games.
Well, last week in Minnesota, Pat, the Vikings and the Chicago Bears put some scores on the board that looked like they were left over from the Twins against the White Sox.
The Vikings offense hasn't exactly been burning up the league the past few weeks, but the Vikings have been winning. And one reason they will probably win a lot more this season is their quarterback, Francis Tarkenton, who now ranks 2nd to John Unitas in almost every passing category in the book. Tarkenton's favorite receiver, John Gilliam, is a true game breaker. Although this classic touchdown by Gilliam against the Chicago Bears last week was disallowed, Tarkenton scrambled around and hit enough short passes to give Minnesota a lead the Bears couldn't catch. The Vikings' only touchdown came on a simple enough slant pattern down the middle to tight end Stu Voigt. But this pass also marked another milestone in the remarkable career of the man who will someday probably hold almost every passing record in the NFL record book. When a low snap shot through punter Bob Parsons, the Vikings special teams were able to score 2 points of their own. The Bears did have their moments, such as this effort by rookie runner Ken Granberry, number 47. With young players like Ken Granberry, Gary Huff, and Charlie Wade, the Bears have newfound explosiveness, which last week gave them an even game with the perennial division champion Vikings. But it seems that it's not quite time yet for Jim Fink's new team to beat out his team of the previous 10 years.
Last week in the Astrodome, the Oilers and Chiefs went at each other for 60 minutes. The struggle was, let's say, head-to-head, tooth and nail, hammer and tongs. But more accurately, there was only one word to describe the game. It was dull.
There were a few plays in the Oilers-Chiefs game that defied description. The most notable was a punt return by Billy Johnson, who tore out a page from the Sandlot and put it into the Houston playbook. Fumbles, interceptions, and weird plays were the norm for the scoreless first half, as this apparent touchdown by Mike Sensabaugh on a fumble recovery was called back. The resurgent Oilers held the once powerful Chiefs to an incredible -2 yards rushing in the first 2 quarters. Setback Ed Podolak had 10 receptions for the day, but they were of the nickel and dime variety, and on his way to his longest gain, Podolak naturally fumbled. Houston quarterback Lynn Dickey was betrayed by a severe case of dropsy by his setbacks, a condition which quickly infected the entire Chiefs defense. The Oilers were denied by their own bungling and robbed by the big play defense of Chief cornerback Emmett Thomas, number 18. With it all, Houston took a 7-0 lead on a touchdown by a free agent rookie running back named Ronnie Coleman. But Kansas City rallied on a Stenerud field goal and a slithering 6-pointer by Willie Ellison. Trailing 10-7, Houston hopes for a comeback were snuffed out when number 99, Wilbur Young, jarred Dickey and Kansas City recovered. The error led directly to a touchdown as Mike Livingston threw across the grain to Morris Stroud, and the horror show finally ended 17-7.
The last time the Oakland Raiders ventured to Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh, Pat, they were stunned in the playoffs by the miracle play pulled off by Franco Harris. You remember that one, don't you?
Who could ever forget it? I'm sure the Oakland team didn't. And last week, the Raiders decided to show Pittsburgh fans that they were not about to be intimidated by past misfortunes.
He's got nicknames galore, Jefferson Street Joe or Joe Willie Gilly Gilliam. Take your pick. Either way, led the Steelers to an undefeated preseason and is the engineer on what is thought by many to be the Super Bowl Soul Train Express. When he's hot, he throws a tight, crisp, accurate spiral that whistled Pittsburgh through the first 2 games of the season unbeaten, although tied once. But last week against the Raiders, the Soul Train Express was derailed as the Oakland secondary swooped, swarmed, and stomped on Willie Gilly's receivers all day long. To compound problems, Joe began to press, throwing passes too far, too wild, or too hard to receivers who anticipated getting jolted every time. Thoroughly frustrated up top, the Steelers turned to their ground game, where marauders like number 80 Art Toms pursued and pulverized the crumbling Steeler offense. The Raiders caught their first break of the game when number 27, Ron Smith, returned a punt 47 yards for beautiful field position. Although Oakland's Ken Stabler completed only 5 passes, They came when they were most needed, like this first down arc to tight end Bob Moore. The Snake finished the job himself when he rolled out around the end and tumbled to a 7-0 Oakland lead. The Steelers tried to regroup, but pressure from number 77, Bubba Smith, had Willie Gilly doing the hully-gully in a vain effort to escape. The constant pressure allowed Gilliam only 8 completions in 31 tries plus 2 Raider ripoffs. This theft by number 43, George Atkinson, proved to be the most costly one of all, because on the next play, the Snake reared back and struck on a 6-pointer to number 21, Cliff Branch, to give the Silver and Black an inspirational victory. Inspirational because it was the first time the Steelers have been shut out in 146 home games dating back to 1964. Raiders 17, Steelers nothing.
In losing their first 2 games of the season, it became apparent that the Atlanta Falcons needed to make some adjustments. And against the Saints in New Orleans last Sunday, at least one change was made.
For number 7, Pat Sullivan, it was a chance he had waited 2 years for. The opportunity to show his cool as a starting NFL quarterback. And while Sullivan isn't paid for his abilities as a pass receiver, he does draw a salary for his passing potential. And against the Saints, the former Heisman Trophy winner unquestionably established his ability to throw a real zinger. While the Saints secondary was trying to determine Sullivan's loyalties, the New Orleans offense never missed a beat en route to what has become an almost expected Saint trademark. Number 38, Rick Bias, returned the loose ball 34 yards, only to view the Falcon offense fumble it away 3 plays later. However, it was the second quarter before Archie Manning could drive home 6 for the Saints. Joel Parker's catch put the Saints up by a 7-0 count, but the Falcons wasted no time in retaliating. Gerald Tinker's 72-yard broken field sprint knotted the score at half. And by the 4th period, Atlanta added 2 field goals for a 13-7 edge. With 6.5 minutes remaining, the Falcons were merely trying to use up time when the worst that could happen did happen. Number 72, Joe Owens, stripped Falcon runner Haskell Stanback of the ball. And number 75, Alex Price, recovered to place New Orleans only 8 yards from victory. Jess Phillips, number 34, sifted into the end zone, and Bill McLeod provided the winning point after a touchdown as the Saints escaped with a win 14-13.
It's hard to believe how tough the season has been for the Falcons, Tom.
It would be hard to believe Van Brocklin under these circumstances. But speaking of contenders who are having a tough time, how about the world champions? First, they lost to New England, then had a tough time with Buffalo, and last week in San Diego, the Dolphins found themselves in deep trouble once again.
Don Shula's Dolphins wanted an early edge on the Chargers, so on the game's second play from scrimmage, Bob Greasy hit tight end Jim Mandich, and Mandich took off. Hero Petroleum Premium had a field goal block, so the Dolphins had to wait until the second quarter to take the lead on Larry Zonka's roughhouse run. Number 14, Dan Fouts, brought San Diego back to a halftime tie with a last-minute pass to number 89, 6'7" tight end Wayne Stewart. In the third period, Bob Greasy and the Dolphins found out that they were in for serious trouble for the rest of the afternoon. Before they knew what hit them, the Dolphins were behind 21-7 on 2 touchdowns by Don Woods, number 33, a rookie from New Mexico Highland. Don Woods carried 18 times for 157 yards, and the Chargers were charging. Down by 2 touchdowns, the Dolphins' task looked even tougher when they lost Mercury Morris for the rest of the day. In the fourth quarter, needing 3 scores to win, Bob Greasy looked for and found help from a new source. Wide receiver Nat Moore, number 89. The 5'9½" rookie from Florida accounted for most of the distance as Miami closed to within 1 touchdown midway through the final period. On the next Miami series, the key play was a 3rd and 8 call, which went for 38 yards into the good hands of Jim Mandich. The final 16 yards to the end zone were covered in 2 thrusts by Larry Zonka. And then with just 15 seconds remaining, Zonka's old buddy Jim Kick scored again. And instead of a second loss, Miami had a second victory and was 1 step closer to a 3rd consecutive world championship.
Well, Pat, it's prediction time again. We were 2-3, but we still are 4-4 for the season.
That's a pretty good indication of the kind of year it's been in the NFL. Tough games this week, though, Tommy.
Well, Buffalo at Green Bay. Who do you like?
I like the Green Bays.
Well, I'll go with the Buffalo Bills. I've been going against them too often.
How about Washington, Cincinnati?
Redskins have the offense going. I'll stay with the Skins.
I like Washington in that one, too. Denver at Kansas City.
Boy, there's a real jump ball. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos.
All right, I like the Chiefs. They're 2-1. Minnesota at Dallas.
There's got to be a big one. I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys to really bounce back.
I can't believe that. Yeah. I like Minnesota. How about St. Louis at San Francisco?
The Cardinals to make it 4 in a row? You're letting me have that one?
I agree with you there. I'll take the Cardinals, too. Monday night, the Jets at Miami.
I think Joe Willie will have a good night, but I don't believe they're going to beat the Dolphins.
I don't either. I like Miami, too. At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happens. I'm Pat Summerall.
And I'm Tom Brookshire, and we'll see you next week.